One of the things that I did too is I hired my first coach 5 months before I ever opened my practice. Like I knew my hands and my head and my heart could deliver great service and care, but I didn't know business. And I'm fine with the fact that I didn't learn that from chiro school because there was no way I could run my practice like I was taught how to do it in clinic.
Welcome to the Table Talk podcast, where we get real, meeting with industry professionals and experts in the chiropractic world, talking about the newest and latest, how to scale your practice, the struggles that we all face in practice, and how you can take your practice to the next level. Doc, welcome to the podcast. I am so excited to have you.
Thank you. And likewise.
So for those of you guys out there listening, I want you guys to give a warm welcome to Dr. Barbara Eaton. I have been really excited, and we've been trying to work to get you on the podcast for a while now. I've told people that when you came here to Illinois to our state association, that just the amount of passion and joy that you had during our seminar, it just spurred me to want to make sure that we got you on this podcast to share the message that you have, because I think it's a message that a lot of chiropractors and truth be told, people and business owners across the board can really benefit from. Now, I'm about halfway through your book right now, and I think that there's a lot of truths to it. And so for those of you guys who are watching, this book right here, Two Streets Named Hard by Dr. Barbara Eaton, it is a phenomenal read. And so Doc, I'd love for you to share with us, kind of what your journey has been like in the business world and the lessons that you've learned and kind of where some of the genesis of that book came from, and then just really what you're working on. So I'll shut up. I'll let you tell me about yourself and introduce yourself to the listeners. And so again, welcome.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Kendall, congratulations to you on, seeing a way that you could continue to serve our profession through your Elevate marketing and taking something that you're really good at that a lot of chiropractors aren't, a lot of business owners aren't, like you and I have both heard, and anyone listening has either heard this or said it. Like, I didn't go to chiropractic school to become a marketer. I didn't go to chiropractic school to become a world-class business owner. And it's great that not everyone has to do those things, that those of us who stepped into those roles and really love those roles can serve others. So for the last 30 years, I've said we're in this game called life and we're in it to win it together. That we don't all have to be the best at everything, but coming together, we can tap into that genius that each of us has. And, rising tides raise all ships, right? So I love that you're doing this, and thank you for the opportunity to be here with you today and with your audience. So, I think overall, this is the overarching message that I have, and that is that I used to chase success thinking that freedom was at the finish line and that success was a place to get to instead of a place to come from. And, all of us talk about, I want to be more successful, and I'm doing this to be more successful, and I have this measure of success. And yet I don't find that many people have stopped to really consider, what does success mean? So we're going after this thing, and yet we don't even really have an idea of what is it. And it's going to be different for each person, but where we get tripped up is we take on somebody else's definition of success and we go after it, and we, rise to the top, and then we're like, well, what happened? Like, that wasn't really either worth it, or is this it? Like, I thought I was going to feel different. I thought I was going to have something different than what I've created. And so I started my journey. I went to Logan College of Chiropractic back when that was the name. I think it's different now. At any rate, I'm very thankful for the education I got there, and graduated in 97, was pregnant and had a 18-month-old when I graduated. So I was pretty busy during chiro school. And then a year after I graduated, my kid's dad at the time was also a chiropractor. He finished after I did. We moved back to Michigan, where I was from, and a year later opened our practice in a town of 5,000 people, very much blue collar. I didn't want to be involved in the a threesome in business where there was an insurance company, myself, and my practice member. So I opened all cash and went from 0 to 180 office visits a week in 89 days. And And I just did things differently. First, give all glory to God for that. Like they're very unusual, especially back in the day, unusual to be a cash practice, especially starting out when, Blue Cross Blue Shield was kind of unlimited and living in a very much union place. My practice was in southeastern Michigan. I just chose to do things differently. But at any rate, one of the things that I did too is I hired my first coach 5 months before I ever opened my practice. Like I knew my hands and my head and my heart could deliver great service and care, but I didn't know business. And I'm fine with the fact that I didn't learn that from chiro school, because there was no way I could run my practice like I was taught how to do it in clinic, 3 hours for a consultation and, 45 minutes with every practice member and making $30. Like, no, thank you. So that really set things off to be different for me. In those 5 months of coaching, I also did tons of role playing. And I think it's something that as business owners, we don't create the space for role playing. And yet role playing is what we do every single day with our practice members. And the more that we practice and rehearse, the better we're going to be, the better our team is going to be. And something that I've used from the beginning in practice are whiteboard topics. And whiteboard topics, it was literally that. It was a whiteboard in every single one of my adjusting rooms. And I would put different words on there, whether it was vomit or it was a testimonial or it was something I was interested in. Like I talked about money. I talked about my relationship with the Lord. I talked about marriage. I talked about raising kids, like all of these things, because I was creating community. I also never bought into the lie that you can't be friends with your practice members. Well, why would that be? That sounds silly to me. Like we have a lot in common. We're raising our kids quite similarly. They're people that are of like mind. Of course, they're going to be my friends. So like my kids' birthday parties were practice members and their kids. Like when we went to the beach, I'm from a large family and we had a beach that originally was private and then it turned into a public beach. And so I would just invite practice members like, hey, come, bring your friends, bring your kids, and let's have fun. Like it was just a big family. So if someone listening has bought into that lie from some guru who said at one point, don't be friends with your practice members, like say that serves them, but it doesn't serve you. Like that's how we grow a really awesome community of individuals, not just a practice. And God's given me an amazing ability to grow community, and it's something that is very rewarding as well as really essential. I remember years ago, the church that we were members of was called Anchorage Baptist Temple, and some of you may know the pastor that was there for almost 45 years, Dr. Jerry Prevost, who eventually became the president at Liberty University when Farwell left. And he was the chairman of the board since 96. At any rate, he said this. He said, think of like a concrete wall of cement blocks, right? Like they're put together with grout, right? And that makes a really strong wall. Well, that's what community is like. If you choose to isolate, you're one cinder block. A child can knock that over. So community is about contributing and consuming. Community is about locking arms and being a strong force. Community is about protection. Here in Alaska, you can watch videos of a wolf pack. And let's say they're going after caribou. Well, they get in there and get one off by itself, right? Or the injured or the weak. And when we're in that state, we're really susceptible. And that goes for humans as well. Like isolation is a choice. Don't isolate. Nothing good. Like I think that was one good thing that came out of the pandemic is we were all able to see how destructive isolation is. God made us to be herd animals, not to be isolationists. So, be really active in Dr. Kendall's community, the Facebook community, ask questions, contribute, answer people's problems, share what you're doing. It matters. It also is a really great dopamine hit. And remember, when you're in that community, get to know people so that your mirror neurons are activated in seeing what they're doing. Not as a comparison. Like the comparison game is, I think, one of the most destructive things to our emotional well-being. If I was to compare myself with Dr. Kendall right now, what a dumb thing to do. Like he lives in a different state. He's at a different stage in his life. Like He and his wife have little kids. I'm an empty nester. He has a background that I don't have. Like, there's nothing really for us to compare if we're going to compare apples to apples. And it's the same with anyone else on the planet hasn't had your same experiences. And so I invite you, if you're in that world of the comparison game, ditch it. And I think that Morgan Housel, who wrote the book, The Psychology of Money, if any of you haven't read it yet, like, put it on your list, and at least wise listen to it on Audible. But he does a really great job explaining, like, the title, The Psychology of Money. And, you know, when we're chasing after success and the trappings of modern day success that are a big house and big car and blah, 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 none of those things are bad. But we have this idea that, oh, if I have these things, other people will think I'm really something special. Well, that's not really how it works psychologically. Because if I see Kendall doing this amazing hunt, I'm not thinking about what it's like for Kendall doing that hunt. I'm thinking, what is it like for me to do that hunt? You're not even a part of it, right? Because
Yep.
all of us, our most favorite topic is ourself. A sweatshirt that said, enough about me, let's talk about you. What do you think about me? We're our most favorite topic, right?
Yes.
So if you're someone who's also worried, what will my practice members think about me? Or what will, you know, like, let's say you have a destructive interaction with a practice member and you're like, oh my gosh, they're probably thinking about this all the time. I can promise you they're not. They're thinking about their own life. You're just not that important, which
Right.
isn't to say you're not important overall. It's just in their 60,000 thoughts a day, you're probably not coming up. So you can just drop that load and that weight and that burden of worrying about what other people think. They're just not thinking about you as much as we'd like them to. You know, the fact of the matter is, if they were thinking about us as much as we think that they're thinking about us, we would have to have our practices open, you know, 24/7, 365, because they would be there. It just doesn't work like that. In messaging, the other thing that I've done in the last couple of years is I've really gone head head down into neuroscience. Like, I wanted to understand, you know, like, in chiro school, we're taught about the nerve system. We're taught, like, how the nerves talk to each other. We're taught that, you know, like, every cell and tissue is directed by the brain, but how does the brain work? And so I really dove into the neuroscience of communication and the neuroscience of connection, like, what makes this true? And that has led me to develop a program called the Business Brain Boot Camp. And it's really looking at all of the aspects of our business through the lens of our brain and how it functions. You know, occipital lobe, temporal lobe, parietal lobe, prefrontal cortex, the amygdala, the reticular activating system. Like, how do all of those impact what we're doing in business? And it just makes sense. Like, instead of teaching a team member, you need to make eye contact, you need to make eye contact because of the mirror neuron system, right? So when I make eye contact with you, your mirror neuron system and mine are basically asking, is this person safe? And if the answer is yes, and I have psychological safety, oxytocin levels rise for both of us. Well, that's the bonding hormone, right? So, of course, those relationships are going to be better. Psychological safety. Within 7 seconds of someone showing up in your office on a day-to-day basis, they're deciding if they're going to come back. 7 seconds. That
Crazy.
means that we don't have time to waste. We don't have this buffer to get it right. That means that our front desk person, their priority is a genuine smile and connection with that person, not to get a bunch of stuff done on their computer, but to interact. In my office, the computer was off during practice member hours. That meant that we did a lot of prep work before they came in so that we could be present time consciousness, right? And present time consciousness starts with being grounded so that our brain isn't somewhere else, but it's here, right now, focused on this practice member, because only 7% of communication are the words that we use. 55% is body language and 38% is tone. Well, What if you and your team aren't focused on picking up on body language? What if you don't really know what that body language means? What if you're not aware of the mirror neuron system and therefore like you guys are chaotic and you think that that's okay? That practice member is taking their cues from you and your team. Are you grounded? Are you passionate? Are you present? Are you making the most of that visit to make every single one extraordinary? And when we don't really understand the brain, I think it makes it way more difficult because all we're doing is linear versus expansive. And that leads to, if we're violating psychological safety, you're going to work a lot harder on retention, on making sure that people stick around, right? Not only to get better results, but it affects our bottom line. Referrals, if your practice members aren't feeling safe, they're not going to refer. Even if you're the best chiropractor and they're getting great results, they're not going to refer. Which there are 4 reasons that people do refer and 4 reasons that they don't. When they know the way, they know the how, you've asked them and they have the desire, they will refer. But good service alone isn't enough. That's not how referrals work. And I firmly believe that asking for referrals is an act of love and service. Like if I care about Kendall as my practice member, of course I want to see his wife and his kids under regular chiropractic care because it raises his vibrational frequency, right? Like if his family is all healthy, they're not sharing bugs. If his family is all healthy, they can go up to Ontario and fish. If his family is all healthy, they can make a lasting impact in the kingdom. So asking for referrals is because I care and I love the people that I'm serving. It's not just a business move. And asking for referrals isn't like giving Kendall my business card and be like, hey, Kendall, if you like what we've done here, like, please give someone my card. What? That's terrible. Like, that's not going to stimulate a referral ever. And maybe it's worked once in a while, but wouldn't it be better to have a system that we can count on that works based on how humans operate and based on consistency and predictability and sustainability? So that's been another part of this journey these last couple of years for me is sustainability. As silly as it sounds, I never really thought about that in my business. Like, what's sustainable? How do I want to create structure and frameworks in my business so that they're sustainable without everything orbiting around me? And most business owners, everything orbits around them. Every decision comes to them. Every new idea comes to them. Every new hire is based on that one person called the business owner. And so, of course, then business feels very heavy. Well, that's just training. That's just wiring. That's culture. And that's really seeing a new model. And one of the challenges is that most of us went into practice in survival, right? Like for me, I graduated, I had my student loans, I had my now ex-husband's student loans, and I had 2 babies. That's a lot of responsibility. And I don't think I'm unique in that.
No, it's funny that you say that because I went to Life. My wife gave birth 5 days after I graduated from Life. We opened our practice 6 months later. So we had
Right.
a 6-month-old, and I remember looking at my bank account the day before, and it was $237.16, and I'm like, this has to work. So
Yes.
yeah. So yeah,
So we,
you're totally right.
we started on survival.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you all to just like close your eyes for a minute and imagine the nerve system. And then imagine the brain and imagine neural pathways. Okay? So if you can draw that up, those neural pathways were developed from repetition. Like Kendall, like myself, opened our practice in survival. This has to work. Those neural pathways then are a survival schematic that we continue to run our business on in survival because no one's ever taught us, like, we got to change the schematic. We've got to change from survival to thriving. And what most people do is they start changing the things without changing the wiring. So guess what? It's always going to go back to survival. And how you know that you're running your practice in survival is several things. Do you have high turnover with your team? Does everything revolve around you? Do you feel like it's just never enough? You're like, the first $10,000 that we made. Like, yay! I remember calling my dad and, like my cousin who was a chiropractor and older than I was, like, I thought, like, I have hit it. Well, that $10,000 hasn't changed. It's still $10,000. And if that's all I was earning now, I would be like, you're a failure. But that didn't change. My brain changed about it. Right.
Yes.
And an exercise, I don't remember if I did it at the convention, but it's this to really see how our thinking changes reality. Like all of you consider right now the money in your bank account, not what not what Kendall is talking about, $237 from however many years ago,
Yeah.
but like what's in your bank account right now? Like get that visual. And even if you have to make it up, get a visual. Well, what's that feeling like for you? Like, are you happy about it? Are you not happy about it? Just sit in that feeling for a minute. Now consider moving the decimal point. So let's say you had 10,000. Now we're going to move it. And now you have 1,000. How does that feel? Scary.
Yeah. A lot worse.
A lot worse, right? Now, instead of being 10,000, let's add another zero. And now you have 100 grand. Now, how does that feel?
Feels a whole lot better.
Feels a whole lot better, feels expansive, feels like possibility. And yet it didn't change. Your bank account didn't change, but your well-being in that moment did, just from thought. The only thing that ever can stop any of us is a thought believed. A thought believed like, I'm not good enough. A thought believed like, people don't want to be healthy. A thought believed of, I can't charge $80 for an adjustment. Everyone else in the area charges $40. Well, who said? Like anytime that thought comes up in my head or somebody else's, I'm like, who said and who is they? Where's this committee of they? Like it could be time to fire some of the communities in our head. And so all of that is wiring. And you can really think of wiring like our beliefs. What are our belief systems? Because our belief systems are what run the show. I've heard it said that 86% of our life is based on our subconscious programming. And mindset isn't something like, oh yeah, I worked on that a month ago. Oh, I worked on that. Like already been there, done that. It doesn't work like that because our limiting beliefs, our habitual thinking, our irrational thoughts, all of those get myelinated, right? The more that we think a certain way, the more it's myelinated and the faster it comes up. Like, for instance, here's how you know you've run a couple of circuits over and over again. The next practice member that leaves, during your team meeting, talk about it with your team and see what comes up about it. Is it the same excuse for why the last person left? You've myelinated that. And if you believe it, you put that in your reticular activating system, and now you look for that to be true. And remember, our reticular activating system makes our beliefs true. What do you want to believe about your life? What do you want to believe about your impact? What do you want to believe about the income that you can earn through impact? An extra zero? Or are your thoughts really moving the decimal point in the opposite direction most of the time?
And I think that this is such a holistic way to look at things, because if you just compare this to the way that we think as chiropractors, that we know and we understand that the brain and the nervous system can control and coordinate every single nerve, tissue, cell in the body. But yet, if we're talking to ourselves in those sort of manners, we think that our nervous system is not going to control and create, this circular sort of loop if we don't break that. And so it's, thoughts, traumas, toxins. The thought is creating a subluxation within your brain. I mean, I think every one of us is guilty of this at one time or another. This is why, I was so locked in listening to you, and how I've been as I've been reading your book is it's just like, you're so right. We as individuals, as humans, like we're living this human experience, but at the same time, God wants so much more for us. And all we have to do is just let him in and let him be able to help move us in that sort of direction. And so this is why I've been enthralled with reading the book is because of this, because it's so congruent to the message that we preach to our patients, or at least should be preaching to our patients. But yet, what are we preaching to ourselves?
Right. Eventually we stop believing in ourselves. And I went through that. So I started coaching chiropractors in 1999. A year after I opened my practice, and And so I had really long lunch hours, 12 to 3. And so that's when I did coaching. And then in 2017, I created the 56-day chiropractic boot camp to double your business. And, cranked. Most coaches, only 10% of coaches in the United States earn $100,000 or more a year. The rest earn less than that. And I took that company to 7 figures in less than 3 years. And it was because it was a message that resonated with the audience, right? And, it was working so good, I stopped doing all of the things that built it, right? That sustainability thing. I forgot one of the cardinal things that I learned 30 years previously, that success is boring. Success is boring, right? Like I had this amazing funnel called the Endless Referrals Cheat Sheet. It was amazing for lead gen and booking my calendar full of strategy sessions. Well, of course I would quit doing that. Terrible idea. I wish instead that I had just delegated it to somebody else when I got bored with it, who would have taken it on and run with it. So, word to the wise here for those listening, if you're bored with something in your business that's working, delegate it. Whether you delegate it to Dr. Kendall and he handles all of your marketing, or let's say that you are sick to death with adjusting, don't sell your practice. Hire other chiropractors and put revenue on them. A couple years ago, I led the financial business boot camp with one of my friends, Jeff Soha, who is a wealth manager for 100 million and up clients. Part of that boot camp was like we just answered questions for clients, and a question that regularly came up is what kind of like I'm kind of interested in this for investing. What should I do? And he was like, here's what I don't understand about you chiropractors. Like, you have a money machine in your business. Hire people and put revenue on them. And he said, like in his business, he's not a CPA, he's not an attorney, but there are all kinds of those out there who are really good at what they want, at what they do, and they're either don't want to own their own business or they're not good at it. So he's like, I'll hire them, put $150,000 to $200,000 of revenue on them, meaning like that's what he'll pay them, and they'll earn me $1 million plus a year. Right. So we got to start expanding, like that zero, that extra zero that went from 10,000 to 100,000. Get out of this idea that it has to be you trading time for money. But in order to do that, you have to raise your level of understanding. And the excuse of, I just don't know how, is not an excuse, because here's the deal. At one point, you didn't know how to wipe your own butt. You didn't know how to feed yourself. You didn't know how to walk. You didn't know what a pisiform was, but you learned. And now you know, and now you do differently. You're probably not a good leader right now. I can tell you that you probably haven't learned what it actually means to be a leader, what it means to say, hey, I'm out here leading you, and I'm going to come around from the behind and hold you up. Right? Like a lot of business owners call themselves a leader, and what they really are is an employer. There's a substantial difference between leadership and employer. So my advice is, if you have that expansive mind, if you got excited about adding another zero, it's time to raise your level of understanding as a leader and start adopting and put into your RAS. I'm a world-class business owner. Not I just am some mom and pop shop. I'm a world-class business owner. And then what your reticular activating system will do, it will go out and scan all of the ways in which you can be that world-class business owner, right? Like if I put in my RAS, like, well, no one really likes me and people don't want to be healthy. Yep, that's true. I saw how that person looked at me, and I'm not going to consider that maybe they had a conversation before I ever came along that soured their face. I'm going to make it all about me, which I get that we do that, but let's put something better in our reticular activating system. Like my parents a few years ago started saying that they were old. And I'm like, you're not old. Stop telling yourselves that. Guess what they are now?
They're old.
Old.
Yep.
Our brain is so powerful. Only say things that you want to wire. And remember that wiring, it doesn't take time. Like this idea takes 21 days for a new habit. Well, what if I didn't do anything in the direction of that new habit for 21 days. Just instantly I'll wake up on day 21 and have a new habit. It doesn't work like that. How we develop new wiring is intention, repetition, and sustainability. We've got to wire it and then we've got to myelinate it. And when we do that, it's going to come up faster. And that's what a lot of my book is about myelinating the gap. And here's why it came about. So in 2021, we had a tremendous amount of stress in our personal lives, in our family. There was a division between my husband and my son. And if you want to feel pain, have something like that happen to you. It was horrific. And then a few months later, I wrecked my snow machine and I ruptured ACL, tore both meniscus, lateral and collateral ligaments, and did a compression fracture of my tibial plateau. So I was in rehab for 18 months. I had to have reconstructive surgery. Then when I crashed, I also herniated L5S1. So then eventually I ended up having to have surgery for that. So 2022 was not good at all. 2023 comes around and I just was continuing to decline, not only my health, but when that happened with our son and just some other things, I stopped believing in myself. I stopped trusting myself. And then I wasn't willing to go out into the community, our community at large as chiropractors and say a whole lot because I didn't trust myself. That's the truth. And then in 2023, our marriage was in shambles. We were really knocking down the door of divorce. And so finally the Holy Spirit's like, is this enough yet? What more would you like to finally surrender? And
Yep.
for those of you who are watching, you can see my hands are palms to the ceiling and open. But I think what we do, and I'm just going to speak for myself as a Christian, this was my surrender. Fist. And God's like, I'll take it, but not like that. Like you have to come to a place of full surrender and God will take that from you. And so I also had to confess that I was an idolater. No, I didn't have like a Buddha statue, but I had the idol of performance, of being a production monkey. I had an idol was success. An idol was a healthy marriage. Not that a healthy marriage is a bad thing, but when it was more important to me than my relationship with Jesus, it was an idol. I had the idol of food. And because of that, I had put on 80 pounds in 13 years. So I had to go through the process of confession, right? Surrender, full surrender, and then myelinating new pathways in my brain. And so I talk about that a lot in my book, how we do that. And one of the big things was going from circumstance to reaction. Like so much of my life had just become reactionary. Something would happen with my husband, boom, I'm reacting. Something would happen in my business, boom, I'm reacting. Well, it made sense because I was in pretty much an amygdala hijack, which remember, when we're stressed, worried, bored, concerned, or feeling trapped, that's an amygdala hijack. Cortisol levels, adrenaline, noradrenaline, they're all circulating through your body for a minimum of 18 minutes. When we're in amygdala hijack, we knock our prefrontal cortex offline. And our prefrontal cortex is logic, reasoning, problem solving, listening, and empathy. So when we're stressed, you're not going to make good decisions. When you're stressed, you can't even really listen to your practice members, and they can't listen to you either. When you're stressed and you and your spouse are going at it, terrible idea. Out the window is your empathy and out the window is your listening. You're just going to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, right? And so I was in the amygdala hijack so much too. I was in fawn, which is saying yes. And even though inside it was a big fat no. So I lost trust in myself. I would say, sure, Kendall, I'll do that. Yes, yes, yes. Even though I knew straight up, I'm not going to get that done. And so God and I just really, I came to terms with it, and I was super intentional. Like I had cards written out of the thoughts that I wanted to have instead of the destructive thoughts. And the cards, if I was home, I would pick up the cards and I would literally say those things through about like eating. One of mine was with eating, was like cravings. Like, are you legitimately hungry? And if I was, I'm like, okay, well, let's feed your cells instead of just like eating something that's not healthy for you.
Right.
If it was just a craving, I would remind myself, and I learned this from Mindy Pell's and Menopause Reset, remember that when we eat sugar, it gives off bacteria. And those bacteria are living organisms and they want to stay alive. So they send a message to your brain and your brain says, eat more. That's why you can't eat just one potato chip. So I would go through all of these things. And then I would also ask myself, my husband wanted Cold Stone the other night. And I was really tempted to have some. And then I'm like, well, wait a minute. It's going to ruin my gut that I've worked almost 2 years on healing. Number two, it's going to create inflammation, which I don't want in my life anymore. And number three, how long am I really going to enjoy it? Like ice cream for 3 seconds in my mouth? That's the trade-off? No, it's a no for me. And now I've myelinated that. So now it doesn't have to become such this like robotic thing. It's now the new wiring that makes who I am, because Hebb's law, neurons that fire together, wire together. We are our wiring. That's what differentiates us from somebody else. So I just encourage the readers, like Two Streets Named Hard. You can find it on Amazon, Dr. Barbara Eaton. I have a free workbook that goes along with it. Feel free to reach out to me and ask me for it. I have a book club that meets every Tuesday from 7 to 8 o'clock Eastern, where we talk about the concepts and we myelinate what we're learning in the book. Like this isn't a book, and Kendall, you'll probably agree, this isn't a skimmer book.
No.
Right?
You have to reread things.
Yeah, you got to reread them. Like it's heavy. And at the end of every chapter, I walk you through how to myelinate the gaps that I've just discussed in that chapter. And so I talk about business and I talk about adventure as a way to grow yourself. I talk about relationships, like all of these things where it's really easy to choose easy and life just gets harder versus choosing hard, so that life gets easier. Also, if you don't want to spend the $10 on the book on Amazon, I have a free PDF copy. If you'd like that, I'd love to share that with you as well. The best way to get in touch with me is email drb@barbaraeaton.com. The new website is nearly done. So next week, please venture on over to drBarbaraEaton.com. I have a whole page of the Alaskan life, and they're pictures with descriptions. So if you're someone who is addicted to those Alaskan shows, you'll also really, really like that.
Doc, the last question I have for you, what is something that you are working on now that you haven't quite figured out?
Yeah, that's a great question. I haven't figured out yet how to penetrate the heart and the minds of every human being to understand their brain better, and then to understand that we're not really living as things are. We're living in our thought bubbles. We're living in the reality of our thinking. And when you can really see that at play and understand how mind, thought, and consciousness works, right? Like we have 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts per day. 98% of them are recycled from yesterday, and almost 90% are usually negative in nature. So I'm never surprised why people have the experience of life that they do. And remember that our emotions and our feelings are simply the symptoms of our thoughts, and that we're 100% in control of what that experience of life is. And it's my mission to penetrate people's hearts and minds as much as possible so that they have that understanding. It really changes our well-being, and it's my way of world peace.
Well, Doc, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. We are going to absolutely have to have you back at some point to dive in even deeper. I know that there's another book in the works. When you have that thing ready, I definitely want to have you back so you can share the message and what it is about that. So, Doc, thank you so much for being with us. And for all you guys listening out there, thank you for joining. We'll talk soon. If you enjoyed this episode of Table Talk, a chiropractic podcast, make sure that you subscribe and check out the links below to our free Facebook group with chiropractic marketing secrets, our free resource guides, and the links to all of the guests that we have here on the show and ways to be able to connect with them. Thanks and God bless.